Today, on the chapter we covered this week, or the title of the lesson today, is on church membership. And so, before we dive into it, I actually want to just read what Voddie said in the beginning. And it really resonated. It's probably why TAP chose me to teach today's lesson. I think there's something unique when it comes to church membership. It's a passion of mine, the church, local church. And when I saw the first sentence and get into the paragraph, I'll read it for you guys. Church membership is the most important aspect of lifestyle evaluation. Voddie continues, let that statement sink in for a minute. I'm arguing that the most important thing for a family shepherd to do when he's evaluating how he's leading his family is to ensure they're healthy members of a healthy church. This is more important than his assessment of their financial status, their use of time, their perspective on entertainment, where and how they live, what they drive, where and how their children are educated, or any other lifestyle issue. None of those things is as significant as church membership. And so, reading that and seeing, all right, we're switching to a different part with our lesson here for men, and it's evaluating your lifestyle as a leader, but also evaluating the lifestyle of your family. And he starts off with church membership. Now, I'm not going to break down in a lesson of why we should be a church member, things like that, but I will want to point you there in the Resource Center. We have a 9 Marks book on church membership. They've got great resources. It's a quick, easy read. If you got more questions on what's unique, what's special about being a church member, I would point you to this book right here. It's a good thing to have. Just understand why, especially us at Noblesville Baptist Church, why it's important, why we take church membership so importantly. Now, with the idea of church membership and the way I studied and looked, especially at what Voddie was talking about here, I really, instead of church membership and getting maybe to some people a debate of is membership this or it's not, it's more about church commitment. My childhood was in the Southeast. Charleston, South Carolina, okay, was the majority of my childhood. I'm a military brat, if you don't know. So everybody's third cousin or fourth uncle is a pastor of some church, all right? You try canvassing those neighborhoods to invite them to Easter or a church service. They already know where they're going. I mean, you got more churches in a square area than you got McDonald's or Bojangles or Hardee's in the Southeast. You can go 2 blocks further, and that was a split from that church due to whatever thing, so those 5 families stayed there, 6 families here. You could go 3 more over, and they're all tiny, and everybody's got a church. You could have a city population of 3,000, and you could have 20 churches. It's not a shock. Now, some of you that spent time in the good old South, Dixie South, it's huge. And they're all part of churches. A lot of them are on membership rolls. And oh my goodness, if they get a letter from a church that they're being removed because they show up to Easter once a year for the last 10 or 15, they are going to cause drama in your church. I wish I was exaggerating, but I'm not. When it comes to membership, there's something about, I'm a member of a church. Yeah, I was baptized there when I was 5. I haven't darkened the door since I've been an adult, and I do have other issues in and out of jail. But man, let me tell you, I remember VBS when I was 6. And being baptized and all of that, and I'm a member of that church. Some people in America, especially in that southern part of America, it's being a member is something that's just like a rite of passage or a list on being the good American Republican family or something. So I don't want to talk about you need to be a member of the church, because some of us may have already got that checked off our list. I do want to focus on what's your commitment to the church, because what he's talking about, this is the lifestyle evaluation. And when I got here in 2016, I remember working as an intern with Hack and with Seth. We wanted to take more and more of this church membership even seriously, sending us to 9 Marks conferences. We put in that, updating the church covenant. We really wanted to take this seriously, and I was introduced to even a deeper understanding of what it means to be part of a local church. So before I get into the 4 reasons that Voddie gives, I'll give you a little bit of a background, but more of a disclaimer about me and why I'm passionate, but I come with a different perspective than some people do when it comes to the local church. I'm in Indiana. I have zero family in Indiana. I have zero friends in Indiana. Okay? And I may or may not have found somebody I would pursue with future relationships in Indiana, but we'll see where the Lord guides there. So other than maybe a small percentage of why I would be here in the state of Indiana, it is Noblesville Baptist Church. I could go to Virginia where my brother's at. I could go back down to Texas where my family's at. But I will tell you, I have zero desire to move to Texas or to move to Virginia. I don't hate my family. I talk to them on the regular. Also, me being a military brat, we moved around a number of times, and we didn't live close to family. This Christmas will be the second Christmas in my 32, getting to close to 33 years of living, that I'll spend Christmas with grandparents. That's just because last year was the first Christmas with grandparents. Why did that happen? Out of the blue, my grandparents moved from Reno, Nevada to San Antonio, Texas. How's their health? They're fine. You know, they just moved to San Antonio. Aunts, uncles, I think I've had a handful of conversations with the one cousin on my dad's side of the family, and we ain't close. I have a language barrier with my mother's side of the family in the Philippines. I know zero of them. As a kid, I'd get the phone badge, right up to my face, and I'd just repeat words my mother would say. So they talked to me, but I have no idea what they said. But I was raised, and this is why I think TAP maybe selected me. I'm not a father. I'm not a husband. I just lead myself when it comes to coming to church. But I'm a product of a father that took very seriously this chapter. Church membership, being part of a local church as a Shone Rock, is huge. I mean, I'm not telling you a little story, but there's a little bit of family drama. My parents they're not going to watch it via YouTube, so I'm safe saying this. My little brother, he's a youth pastor at the church that we went through our whole high school years, right? He met this girl that's also a member of the church. And they're engaged to get married. I'm not really as excited about going to see my brother get married. I was excited to go back to San Antonio, not with my family, my parents and them being there. I mean, wherever they're going to get married, I'll see my parents and my brother. But man, the guys I was in youth group with, the families that I saw that knew me when I was a freshman in high school, I'm going to spend a weekend or a couple of days going back with my church family of San Antonio. Now my brother's telling me they're doing a destination wedding in Hawaii. Love of a brother. I'm going to spend money for 3 days in Hawaii with nobody else. I'm like, damn, it's cheaper to go to San Antonio. I'll get some Whataburger, and I get to see my church family. He's not convinced, so we'll see where that goes. But it's just, church family is a big deal. I remember referring to people as my uncle and aunt going to church as a kid. I remember an older couple that discipled my parents that I treated them like my grandparents because it was a big deal with that church family. We grew up going to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, choir practices the Sunday afternoon, the Wednesday night, a Thursday night, and a Saturday morning. Church is open, we were there. My father and my mother were like first-generation believers when having 3 boys before they hit their mid-20s. My dad goes to Korea, leaves my mother in the state of Washington, barely speaking enough English to be comfortable, because Uncle Sam says we need guys in Korea for a year, and learns while being at a serviceman mission the importance of being part of a community of believers. He comes back and he's like, we are always going to be at church. That changed. He was discipled in that way, and it's always affected the way we were as a family going to church. Now, my childhood, I give this disclaimer, my dad didn't bat 1,000. There are things that I read here and studied here. He probably wish he would have knew when he had kids in elementary grades. But the churches I was at as an elementary kid, I would never recommend to anybody to ever attend. My dad was just trying to make the best decision possible. Praise the Lord, when I was latter in the 5th grade, 6th grade year, it dawned on him these were dangerous churches, and he finally said, let's get out of here. And we found churches that actually taught and preached the counsel of God's word. My childhood was militant, to capital letters, militant fundamentalism. It was dangerous. The other kids I knew in junior church that their family stayed, they don't darken the church, those doors of any church today. It was toxic. It was dangerous. So why do you say that, Mike? You don't have to always say you get up there and swing and make contact every single time as your dad and making the best decisions, but my dad kept taking swings. And he knew he had to be to church. And look at the Holy Spirit. I praise the Lord. So we get out of those churches and got us somewhere that actually taught the whole counsel of God's word. And I could see at that point, as a 6th grader, a 7th grader, a mom and dad that started learning more about the Bible. But even one of my first couple of, years of life of that, we at least just showed up. It was dangerous places, but they knew this is what we had to do. We read through other chapters that are before this that are really good at taking the concept of, hey, this is what you need with your family. This is good things you add. When I look here, it's important, but it's also, I will say, it can be one of the easier things you do. You got to make decisions on how you raise children and discipline them, right? As they grow and you're adjusting each child, I can only imagine that's probably tough calls to make. We spoke about education. You got to constantly think and evaluate, are we doing the best for our kid? That can't be an easy decision to make. There's other places in this book where you got to install family worship and other things that are going to take a whole lot more of a grind from you in self-discipline and how you lead a family, but being committed to a church can just be as easy as just making sure you get in the car and you come on in and just being engaged. I think Peter said this one time. It's putting your family within the path of being blessed. You may not know exactly what you're doing, you're struggling, but you want to make right calls to get at least your family into blessing. Why not under the preaching and teaching and the fellowship of a local church? So when Voddie says this is important, I come just telling you, I got parents that took it seriously, and I'm a public school kid. I had parents that didn't have answers to a whole lot of theological things. They got this one right, and they wanted to, still to this day, even if they go on vacation, they're planning a church they're going to attend on the way there, different things. They take it huge, and I want to encourage you, as a product of young believers being my parents, this helped them because there's things that Voddie covers, is why he says it's the number one thing for your lifestyle evaluation, because where your gaps are at, the local church can help you shore those gaps up, can help you in support of raising your family, but you can't do it just by yourself. There's a reason we meet as a local body of believers. So when we get into these 4 reasons, number 1, if you remember, he says it's for identification. Why, as family shepherds or as men of households, it's important to be a member or be committed to a church, a local church? It's identification. John 13:34-35, a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another just as I have loved you. You also are to love one another. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. The context here is believers loving one another well. What's unique and what's difficult about a local church is we're very different. But there's something supernatural about a Holy Spirit bringing us together and giving us the ability to love someone that looks different than me, that has a different background than me, but we share the same Jesus in changing our lives. And all of a sudden, you see what's beautiful in bringing people together. And so it's important for identification. You can't tell me you're a believer and then have no interaction with the church where you're loving other believers. Christ says people will be able to identify you as one of my followers as they see you love one another. It's important for identification. Your children, your wife, they need to know that you are choosing to identify with a body of believers, and not just by saying I'm a member of the church, but committed to seeing how you love each other. So it's important for identification. You share life with people. I've worked in some capacity of youth ministry with teens from early college days through what I do now. And sometimes when you're in college, you're meeting teenagers, I hear things, they may get the drop-off part where you might bring and say, hey, help them out. But it's a bigger thing when they know you identify and are committed to your church. Because I can go to Bible colleges and you hear the gripes and complaints of kids that are going like, yeah, I mean, they paid tuition and got me to a Christian school, and they made sure I got to youth group, but then they may see some weird things between how their parents or their father led when it came to interaction with the local church. Sometimes we live in a time, not sometimes, we do live in a time where the women of households are more committed to their local church and the community of the church than fathers are. You may drive the minivan, but you don't drive any connection between you and the stranger behind you. We'll talk about Notre Dame's score or somebody else's score, the weather, but we're quickly out and we're not really as much connected with the body. And then you have women, they'll meet and they'll talk all the time and there's something there, but they won't see anything of their father really connecting with church. Just knowing, well, I need to have him here, that's it. And so they see it, and I see that as more as an identity issue for leaders of homes. Do you identify your household's last name? Is it identified with you are committed to being a part of that church? When I was in college, my parents' house was robbed twice. It was a unique setting. It was robbed twice because they didn't really ransack through everything. They knew exactly what they wanted to get both times. My little brother's PlayStation. A little bit of cash. They didn't cause a huge mess. Both times, my parents were hit on Sunday morning. The cops told them, somebody knows you go to church every Sunday morning because we don't get a lot of calls about Sunday morning robberies that happen around 10 a.m. But it was just an identity that they were going there. Now, my dad was not happy that his house was broken into twice, nor was my little brother. So I always say, it's one of your friends, Tim. Which one of your friends are you telling that we go to church on Sunday, Tim? Come on. But it's part of that identity. Do your kids know that? So that's number one. We identify with our church membership. We identify with a community of believers. It's a way we could show this. But almost in transition to number two, it's also a place where we identify for doctrinal perspective. The elders of the church preaching and teaching help us to defend what's false in our communities, what we hear that could be false gospels. You need help being led as a community. You have shepherds amongst this local church to help us understand, hey, through the regular preaching and teaching, we can be able to say, hey, that doesn't sound correct, and you can protect your family. You don't have to be the smartest guy in the room. Just surround yourself with a bunch of other smart guys at times, okay? That's what I do, right, Rob? Like, I know I'm not the smartest dude, but I've always learned that there's others smarter than me, and being with them or knowing it or understanding what they're teaching is huge to help you protect your family. But number two, it comes down to edification. Identification with the church is important. Edification, the building up, is very important. Voddie had a sentence here. Don't rob your family of the means of grace that's there to help them be healthy, help them grow and protect them, and help them mature as believers. It's really huge. Don't rob them of that. Edification, the building up. Colossians 3, 12 through 16. Put on then as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, bearing with one another, and if one had a complaint against another, forgiving each other, as the Lord has forgiven you, so you also must forgive. And above all these, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. And let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in one body, and be thankful. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with thankfulness in your hearts to God. It's not written just in the context of how you interact with others outside or just your family. This was written in context to a church there in Colossae about how they interact with each other. And there's this edification, there's this building up of each other. And even when you go to Ephesians chapter 4, we're talking about the building up of the church, even more specifically verse 11. And he gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the shepherds, and teachers to equip the saints of the work of ministry for building up the body of Christ, until we all attain to the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God, to mature manhood, to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ, so that we may no longer be children, tossed to and fro by the waves and carried about by every wind of doctrine, by human cunning, by craftiness and deceitful schemes. Rather, speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in every way into him who is the head, into Christ, for whom the whole body, joined and held together by every joint with which it is equipped, when each part is working properly, makes the body grow so that it builds itself up in love. There's something special about the means of grace that when you're part of a local body, helps us grow together. Paul, writing to the church of Colossae, writing to other churches, but here in Ephesus, he puts an importance that there's means of grace given to this local church, this local body of believers there together, that's key for edification, the equipping, the building up. I jokingly say it, but you know maybe where you need help at. Or you may think you're more of the John Wayne in leading your family, and you're going to take it on your own. Both are errors. You have a community that helps. There are those here that have different gifts of the Spirit that help really equip and build up this body, and that in part is your family. So don't rob your family of that grace, the common grace of being around church elders that preach and teach God's word. Those that are wanting to disciple in some fashion, be it formal or informal, your family also with what you're doing. I don't think more discipleship is ever a negative, so why not add to what you're doing, right? But here's a part where I want to park just for a second and encourage, really push all of us men. How much do we help interact with the other families in our church? I know I'm speaking specifically to you leading your household, but if we're here to help each other, how much do we want to be in each other's lives? So, as a single person, I see some things a little different than those that are with a family. I've spoken about this before, so I might sound like, if you have really good recall, you might remember something I said years ago. But one of the hardest demographics for the church, well, number one is single women. They feel a really weird vibe. Why? Because we're all sectioned off in families, and we stay like that sometimes from when we arrive to when we leave. I'm a little different because I'm more proactive within the church body, and I'm talking and moving, and I'm meeting people, but there can be some others that it is a little different. They don't interact. I'm not trying to speak on singles, but I want to look at the bigger picture. But I remember even hearing from others that were single in the church where they do talk, it's being tough at times because you feel included when the service starts and ends, but when before the service starts or after the service ends, you feel like a weirdo. You stand around, all right, we got to get to 7 kids, let's go. We've got Luby's, sorry, that's a Texas reference, or some restaurant. We got to get them in, we got to move, we've got ball games. I don't want to steal Brother Larry's thunder for next week, but like all of a sudden, we've got the rest of the 20 hours planned out for Sunday, and all of a sudden we got the church service over, and we're hustling and bustling our families through, but they're not really crossing paths. And I'm saying it in the mind of a single because the single never gets sometimes ignored, and people will walk right past them, and you get through, and your family feels cool because you're good to go. But what about other families? When we're in that hustle and bustle, we got the church service in, we don't miss a Sunday, but how many times do you connect either before, after, or during the week with other people? I told you, my dad didn't have all the answers, and he was a first-generation believer, but there are men that invested in me by talking to a teenager while they were in their 50s, 60s, 30s. There's guys I still text today in a group text that were deacons and now pastors at that time at that church, but at other spot, because I'm not their child. They had no reason to want to talk or whatever, but they did. And it meant a lot. Also, parents, teach your children to interact with the church body. If you want to be a betting man in Vegas, in a couple weeks, when I go to San Antonio, when I go to church, my mother, even though I am a grown man at 33, okay, by the time I'm down there, she will quiz me or ask me if I met a whole list of people. I'm there for one Sunday. I really don't care about meeting the 7 new families in the church. It's a military church, so you always got new, but I need to meet them. Because when I was 12, and my dad was involved in the church, Seymour as an elder deacon at that time, we had to meet everybody. My mother would come whisper by my ear if I was hanging out with my teenage buddies and go like, "Shh, did you talk to so-and-so? Hey, Mrs. So-and-so's over there." My mother made sure that like the Dieta Birches of the church or the Patricia Johnsons and others got a hello, a hug from all three of her Shone Rock boys, because you would hear an earful if you got in the van and she found out you did not say something to them. I didn't know I was getting trained in how to interact with the church. I will tell you, when I walk through their doors, they got 2 open doors, I'll still make the round, shake hands, see that, because mom sees you do that. Then after you made the rounds of seeing people as many as you can, then go talk to the buddy you got a youth group. Don't copy everything my parents have. You probably got better ideas, but also encourage your children to interact with different people at the church. But also those that are better at social practices, go interact with a kid. Go say hi to a teenager. Ask them how's school going. Ask them if they're reading their Bible. Share what you have been going through. It can make a difference. There's edification. Number 3, he talks about cooperation. This was in the idea of evangelism and mercy ministries. We don't debate much of the need to go evangelize, but to do it as a corporate body. There could be some that are more of the, I call it a maverick mentality. You could take something on and you're really chasing something, but don't do it alone. You have a church. But also in evangelism, you have a church. So that family, that coworker, bring them to church. Let them see the power of the gospel of a different looking body of believers meeting and worshiping, and see what that does is showing them more of their need of a gospel. But he also brings up mercy ministries. And Voddie talks about saying this is where people can debate. They think, oh, we're not going to be the Red Cross or the social gospel. But it's clear in 1 Timothy 5 about taking care of the widows, those that are widows. Let families take care of widows, but let the church take care of truly of the widows. What are we doing in taking that about loving Noblesville with the mercy of the Lord, showing them Christ-like love through mercy ministries? Yes, we made mention we prayed for the abortion clinic. We're going down to Indy. Foley leads going into the Good News Mission. I'll go down there. Other men will go down there. But that's in central Indianapolis. So I challenge you as men's households, if you take anything away other than Mike's got some quirky things about him, you live in this community. Us as a cooperative group, as a community of believers, as a local church, what else can we do? And don't rely on Tap, Hack, and Seth to quickly identify something and look for a sign-up list. You might say, hey, I think we could really get involved with this, and then bring it to the church to see if other families would help you. Go to a place like Third Phase and help women that are in need, that are coming through very difficult situations. Or the Crisis Pregnancy Center, that could be down there. Could be more with the counseling ministry and reaching out to those literally within our community that need help with the gospel. Figure that out and how you cooperate, but don't take it as just a family. You can start it with a family, maybe make it a family worship thing where you get your kids interacting, and then come with your church and cooperate and see how, together, maybe some other families, and see how a local church with believers that are active in their faith, with evangelism, we're really wanting to show the love of Christ to their community could do. It's powerful. It helps you when you've got 2 or 3 of your families together that you talked about in church going and doing something. You know, I'm not talking about programs, but I am talking about if you've got that mentality, we need to evangelize and show love. We can do it through the church. But don't wait for the church to give you an idea. Be proactive about it and come here to it. I'm losing time, so I'm really summing this up. But with cooperation, there's things to do with evangelism and things we can do with mercy ministries that maybe you have had an idea, but you've got a local church of believers, and bring it. You say, well, how do I do that? Well, just talk with some other families. Talk with the leadership of the church. Show them that you got a great interest and a willingness to do it. Nothing's more annoying to church leadership than somebody that throws a random idea, but they don't want to sign up for it. It's like that prayer request on the Wednesday night. Some of y'all understand. Mrs. So-and-so, like, our teens need a little more of this and that. They need to teach them some more things. Ma'am, have you taught? No. But you guys, do that. That's my whole, sorry if I got some PTSD of just weird stuff in my childhood. But like that was a normal thing. You got ideas, but also be willing as a family to say, we think we could do this, we will help, but who else wants to go with me? Come together. The last part, number 4, he says, we do this for accountability. The benefit of church membership, we have a church covenant. We are defining boundaries and expectations. It makes it easier to perform something like church discipline, to find a brother in fault and call him out and be able to go through the formative steps of making sure we can get him, one, to repent of his sin, but how can I call you out if I don't know you? It's like we all are waiting for that Facebook post, that scandalous, oh, no, he didn't. And then let's go call Seth up. You might want to check on so-and-so. I heard they just did this. And that's kind of a way we find each other out. It's a weird thing. We live in the world today where if you really are in each other's lives and you're committed to the local body, then you have protection to say, brother, you're at fault in your sin here. Do you realize this? Now, I don't want to kick you out of church. I want to call you to repentance, and I want us to grow closer in our love for Christ because I care and I love for you. And that's helpful, but it's hard to do if we're all just a bunch of strangers. Accountability. Again, when you survey churches across America, evangelical churches, it is difficult for men to really have this. Women ministries, it's huge. They're texting and calling each other. They got group texts, all helping, keeping each other, accountable and seeking help, but we can be so isolated. And I speak as a guy that's very guarded, naturally. I have no problems hearing or helping you. You talk to Seth and Hackett, who've known me longer than anybody else within this building, at times to get something really update on Mike, it's a little difficult. I'm naturally guarded. I need brothers that care to be able to ask me some questions that make me uncomfortable. I need for somebody to really get to know a little more of my life because I also can be guarded. I'm not a champion at this, okay? But I know it's crucial to have the accountability. The accountability also helps us as we grow. Closing, we live in a time where for some of us to grow in our faith, to learn more Bible, we can be more attracted to YouTube channels and podcasts than we are committed to the local church. And I believe that is dangerous. You say, why? I don't know the guy that I'm listening to. He might be smart. He's got some really cool things to say, but I don't know this guy. When you're pursuing a master's degree or a doctorate degree, they teach you in research not just to be able to read somebody, but who are they? Why are they writing? They're not just writing just to be posted. There's a response to something, or there's an agenda they want pushed, and sometimes we can be so ignorant as sheep that, oh, this sounded really good, and all of a sudden you can walk down and become extra fundamental or really pointed at different things just because I got a good podcast and I watch a good YouTube channel. I'm not downing those, but I'm saying if that's all we have to feed ourselves, you don't know that person that's teaching you. There's a reason why we have shepherds of the local church. You can hear Adrian speak and you're like, that's a good sermon, but then you can interact and get to know Adrian. You hear Seth and Hackentat preach. They preach good truths, things that you're like, oh yeah, but you know what's different? Is you get to know that guy. You know where he's coming from. He's preaching a sermon on a Sunday morning because this is his local church that he has been called to shepherd, and he has love for this church. Sometimes you guys interact. I've been interacted with teachers that might have some popular other things. They got a whole different agenda. We don't always understand that. It's okay, but balance it out. Understand, if you're more committed to a podcast or a YouTube than you are to growing in the local body, getting to know your shepherds, getting to know other men in your life that are also disciple you, there's some danger to that. I work with a live stream thing, and sometimes I see the numbers of 20 households watching the live stream. Now I understand we live in a time of COVID with people getting ill. We got the cold and flu. Even though I'm fine working with the AV ministry, there are times where I go, it's really 20 households that could not be here this morning. There are reasons why we have it, and it's to fit a specific need. But a danger at times for having a live stream as a church is we can lose people that lose connection to their local church. It's written about right now. It is an issue that pastors all throughout the country are trying to bring back families, because COVID was one thing, but there are now those that are so comfortable. Maybe somebody's going to watch later on YouTube. So comfortable with that, with being away from their local church that they're technically still a member of, that nobody's holding them accountable. Nobody's helping them. As you lead your families, as you lead your wife, the number one thing about your lifestyle is, what are you committed to when it comes to the church? I'll never forget when Peter put that statement, but just put your family in the path of being blessed, and then all of a sudden, ding, 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 that was what my dad was trying to do the whole time. You don't have to know exactly everything, saying, okay, I'm planning the 5 years, my family's going to be here. Sometimes we need a whole lot of help, and it's with the local church. So don't just come on a Sunday morning. Come whenever the church doors are open. Don't just come and attend your church, but be a part of it. Sometimes scan who's sitting in the row in front of you and behind you. Are you actually in their lives? Make that little pop quiz for yourself as a leader of your family. Switch it up. Sit in different areas, too, and see, is a person around me, am I in their lives? Can I say they can hold me accountable at any time? Am I cooperating with them in spreading the gospel? Are they part of that edification process in building up my family and myself? And where we began, can that person identify me as a believer, a part of this community, or do I even struggle knowing their name? So Voddie, with his first thing was lifestyle evaluation, your church membership. We see Paul write about it. If we had more time, we could really take part in some of these other passages. But let me encourage you, don't make it too complicated in being part of a church. Don't rest that you're already a member, and I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir. You guys are here to the ABF hour. But how committed are you to this local body? There's other pressures and things you may face, and knowing what your commitment is to the church as you lead your family. As Voddie says in this last section, this is the first part of your lifestyle evaluation. You're a Christian. A Christian is part of a local community of believers, is part of a body of other believers. You can't call yourself a Christian and then not be committed to a local body of believers. Let's pray. Lord, thank you for today. Bless us as we go our separate ways. I pray for your blessing tonight on the kids program. Not just the kids. There's going to be, what I find to be some real special things about the whole program with men and women of the church. So we pray your blessing there. Maybe it'll bring family members coming into the church tonight that don't know you as their Lord and Savior, that we'd be able to be a blessing, but also minister to them the gospel. Thank you for the baptisms today. Thank you for us being reminded that this church of local believers, we're being added to with those that identify to be a follower of Jesus. And so we thank you for baptism, and we thank you for those that are identifying publicly to join us to be a lighthouse of this community. Lord, I pray for the men that are husbands and fathers. They hold a whole lot more on their shoulders than I, at this point, can understand. I pray that they submit to the Spirit's leading in how they lead their families. I pray that other brothers around them can encourage them to keep on fighting the good fight of leading their wife and their children. I pray for the young guys here that don't have a family, the teenager, that they start building things that are right now non-negotiables in their Christian life. So it's easier to make decisions as they meet that future spouse, as they have children to raise, because when they were 16, 17, they knew there's non-negotiables into being a man of God. May other men teach that to them, and they take it seriously. We ask you for your blessing. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.